Hey everyone, it's Anya here at our gabled home, and in today's video I want to share with you how you can bake a super nice sourdough bread that comes out fluffy and perfect every single time. I have baked a lot of sourdough breads, and I was always a little bit frustrated by the recipes where you have to fold the dough and then you have to sit it and then you have to spend another half hour waiting and then you have to do another stretch and fold. And I wanted something that was a little less hands-on, that would still give me perfect results every single time. So I experimented with some recipes and I tweaked them, and I'm super happy to share my new recipe with you that gives you that perfect result every single time with minimal hands-on time. And I am telling you about 2 secret ingredients that I'm using to create that result. So stay tuned. When I said that this is a sourdough bread, it is a sourdough bread because we are using a ripe sourdough starter. However, I'm adding 2 more ingredients, and one is just regular commercial yeast, dry yeast. And then another ingredient is the diastatic malt. It is made from barley flour. It's pretty easily available, and it increases the activity of the yeast, so it gives you a better result, and professional bakers use that all the time. It creates a really nice texture and chewiness, and I've been loving it. I'm just adding a little bit to my recipe, and I couldn't be happier with how the bread turns out every single time. I like to start my sourdough bread the night before by adding about 2 cups of lukewarm water to a bowl. And then I add a good cup of ripe sourdough starter to my warm water. Like getting the last bits of the sourdough out. And then I just stir it all up. Mix it well to get the sourdough starter activated. I'm giving it a really good stir, as you can tell. Then I'm adding about 5.5 cups of flour. I have some whole wheat flour in there, about maybe 30%, and the rest is regular all-purpose flour. And then I'm adding about 1 teaspoon of dry yeast, 1 teaspoon of the diastatic barley malt flour, and about 1 tablespoon of salt. And again, mixing it up. I'm just mixing it with a spoon, incorporating all the ingredients, going slow. And this will be a very shaggy dough. This is not going to be a dough that you can mix with your hands. It's going to be very sticky and wet. That's why I'm using a spoon and just, again, mixing up until all the dry ingredients are mixed up with the water in the sourdough starter. And if you do this and you find that your dough for some reason is too dry or too wet, like it's not coming together like mine is starting to do here, you can always adjust the ingredients. You can always add a little bit more water, and you can always add a little bit more flour. But this is basically, here's the consistency that I'm looking for. Really shaggy, wet dough. I'm just scraping down the sides because I like to get a little bit dry overnight. So here's my dough shortly before I go to bed. And then I'm just going to cover it with some plastic and let it sit overnight, which is typically about 8 or 9 hours. So this is a dough, what it looks like in the morning. And I'm just going to take my hands to bring it together. I'm dipping them in some flour so that this sticky dough doesn't stick that much to my hands. And I'm just going to take it off the sides of the bowl to work it into a ball, just scraping it down, getting some more flour on my fingers so that the dough won't stick as much. And you can see how much is sticking to the bowl. So it really is a wet, sticky, shaggy dough. That's exactly how we want it. Just mixing a little bit more. I might stretch a little bit. Just using a little bit more flour with both hands to take it out. And now I'm just going to form a ball that looks a little nicer on the outside. So just folding it under, stretching it on the top side and folding it underneath so that the top side is a little bit more smooth and flattened. Yes, there's a little bit more in the bowl that I'm scraping together and sticking just underneath. I had lined a cast iron Dutch oven with some parchment paper, and I'll put the dough ball in there. You can see it's very sticky. I'll put the lid on and let that rise. I added some flour on top, what it looks like after 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. And now I'm gonna score the top of the crust. You don't have to do that, but it gives it just a nice pattern and just looks a little bit more finished. And this is a scoring blade. You can use a very sharp knife, and there's so many different patterns that you can use. I'm using a very simple one here, and as you can tell, the dough is very soft, so it's moving while I'm cutting it, and that's okay. You just go slow, and maybe you'll go back into some of the cuts and repeat that to get a little bit deeper in it, but it just makes it look a little bit nicer. Cutting it all the way down to the end. You can go very fancy here or just a very simple basic design. And again, like I'm going back into those cuts. I'm setting my oven to bake at 450 degrees. I put the lid on the cast iron and put it in the cold oven for about 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, I take the lid off and bake it for another 20 minutes. And this is what the crust looks like of a total of 1 hour of baking. And here's the finished bread. It is perfect. It rose. It's when you tap on it at the bottom, it sounds very hollow, and it has a nice crust that I scored a few times, and we're gonna cut it and look at it, what it looks like. If you found this video helpful, give me a thumbs up. If you're new here on my channel, please hit the subscribe button. I upload new videos every week. You can also hop on over to my blog at ourgabledhome.com, where I have more tips and recipes. Thank you so much for watching, and see you here next time.